we have a tweet from Elon Musk. He says, why are they hiding these centers? And of course, I highlight Elon Musk because when someone with 170 or so million people posts a video, people take notice. And the tweet here is actually, it's from @InfoUncensored, I believe. That's what's watermarked in the video. This video is going so viral, I don't know what the original source, but this is a man who goes into one of these migrant facilities, the Randall Island Illegal Immigrant Center, and he gets a view into all of the tents. I mean, this is a massive facility. We heard that, I believe it's in Chicago, the taxpayer is spending $7,000 per illegal immigrant per month. And they're bringing in thousands, and they're building these facilities. You take a look at some of this stuff. It is absolutely shocking. Here we go. Henry.
$84,000 a year, just so we understand. That's above median income in this country. Fairly significantly, actually.
I want everyone to understand what this means, because the Biden administration is facilitating this directly. This means that when you go to work and you make $50,000 a year, and you're wondering why your gas is expensive, why your food is more expensive, and why you can't afford to pay the rent, just remember that the illegal immigrant in Chicago is getting $84,000 a year in benefits that you are contributing to through your tax dollars.
That's crazy. That's a lot of money.
You get to pay for yourself, your kids, their schooling, their health care, as well as a few million illegal immigrants who, seemingly, because I know the rocket scientists and the nuclear physicists, they can't get into the country. But if you bring no skills and you're going to be a dependent, which means you're going to be on the Democrat Party dole and vote accordingly, you can come in with reckless abandon.
It's also incentivizing a lot of people to come in that, of course, will be taken instead of giving. Because if you created a situation saying, hey, you guys could make something out of yourself, but you have to work for it, there's going to be opportunities where you could prove yourself. That's something else completely different compared to, we're going to give you a bunch of free stuff. California, you get a free sex change. California, you get free health care. And then on top of this money that is given to these specific migrants, we have to understand there's also a larger economic cost to housing. The price of housing is going to be going up as there's going to be less available of it. The price of labor is going to be going down, specifically with a lot of labor now being available for a lot of workers.
And it's going to get worse.
Yeah, well, the hedge funds are buying all the housing. They want you to be permanent renters. It's again, I said it earlier in a speech today here in Iowa. Just like, if you had this sort of proverbial Manchurian candidate and you were trying to destroy America from within, what would you do differently than today's Democrat Party? And the answer, I literally cannot think of anything they could get away with beyond what they're actually getting away with that could make it worse. It's hard to believe.
It's almost like if you were trying to implement this plan to destroy the country, they got a pretty good one.
Oh, it's a phenomenal plan.
Must have cost them a lot of money.
It's doing great. Our enemies are laughing their asses off. China's just loving what's going on right now. They couldn't have orchestrated it better themselves.
Let me pull this article because it's going to get worse. New York Post. Elon Musk warns migrants are, quote, coming for your homes after New York City kids forced out of the classroom. Now, the corporate press doing what they do best. I love how they did this to your dad, Don. Yeah. Elon Musk he comments on what's already been reported. They call him a liar. Yep. I saw this happen with during the Trump administration so many times to your dad. He comes out and he goes, oh, now they're saying they're going to do X, Y, and Z. Media then reports Donald Trump lies about X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no. I reported on exactly what what Trump said 2 weeks ago. Elon Musk, there was a report in Massachusetts, I believe it was, and in New York, that they were suggesting that private residents give up space in their homes to illegal immigrants.
The lieutenant governor of Massachusetts. And that's the New York Post, owned by Fox News. That's conservative programming. Let's air quote it. But conservative programming actually taking that approach. That tells you everything you need to know about our corporate media, even on the conservative side.
They want to put Elon Musk warns in the headline. They could have said Elon Musk highlights comments from Lieutenant Governor. They could have pointed out, but I'm not gonna roast the New York Post for simply saying Elon said it. Fine, he did. But the issue is that now you've got the corporate press claiming that Elon Musk is lying or exaggerating in these claims when all Elon did was read the New York Times and then tweet. Here's a thing I read.
Well, they did the same thing to him about the DEI in the airplane thing. It's like, he's racist. He's like, no, I just want good pilots. Like, you're doing programs that are choosing people that are not the best pilots, and it's not an unreasonable as to say, I would just like a competent pilot. I don't care if they're green, blue, purple. It makes no difference to me. And I just like them to be able to fly a plane, but that's not what they're trying to push.
He retweeted James Lindsay, who was highlighting the diversity initiatives and the bonus structure. It's not just like we want to try and hire more people. It was like you'll get paid more if you hire non-whites. And so Elon said they're sacrificing. He said, would you want to fly in an airline that is sacrificing the skill or sacrificing safety for diversity. And then the media attacked him, claiming, I love this, NBC said Elon Musk claimed this without evidence. And I'm like, what do you mean?
It's their policy.
He literally retweeted James Lindsay's, it's a document from the airline breaking down their diversity initiative.
Yeah, it's I feel like I wake up a lot of times, like right now, and I'm just waiting for like Ashton Kutcher to like jump out of a cake and be like, you're just being punked. Like, no, I feel like I'm the star of the Truman Show at times. Like, there's no way this is real, right? There's TV cameras following me around in every room that I'm in, because they must be, because no rational person could do these things, and yet it's happening.
I feel like that too, and it's like, I think it's our bias is free speech bias. We've got this bias that the American Constitution is preeminent and will always stand, but I think the most of the world just wants it gone. They want us to live like digital serfs and not.
I don't know if most of the world. I think it's but the people who are in charge, because the people that actually hold that power, the World Economic Forum guys, like, they're never gonna, you can't drive your car, but I'll take my G6, which will burn more fuel in 30 minutes of air travel than you will in your entire lifetime. But no, it's different for me because I'm doing good and I'm smarter than you and I know more. So you eat bugs, I'll eat steak. You rent your home from me forever, and the second we control the entire rental market, we'll jack up the rents and you'll be serfs for life.
Yeah, that's exactly true. It's not most of the world. Most of the world wants free speech, and they would rise up against their tyrannical governments if they thought that they could win. But it's these power structures that are like trying to stomp out free speech. It's really insane.
Well, look, I said something rather intense, I'll call it, last week. When I'm watching these videos of law enforcement officers facilitating crimes against our country on the southern border, particularly, let's go back in time, a month or so, we heard Texas said we're going to make it illegal to cross our borders without, through the proper process. The Biden administration threatened them. I entertain the issue. What happens when Texas state law enforcement confronts federal law enforcement, and federal law enforcement is explicitly breaking the law? First, let's start with a simple question. If a police officer one day decides to rob a bank, do we have someone go and arrest that police officer? And of course, there's no question. Robbing a bank? What if he was told to rob the bank by the chief of police? Yeah, it still doesn't matter. He still went and did it. What we have now is the Biden administration instructing law enforcement. We saw the videos of the bulldozers lifting up the razor wire. They are facilitating illegal activities against this country, violations of the Constitution. Shout out to Josie, who's sitting over here. Article 4, Section 4. They're supposed to protect us from invasion. Instead, they're facilitating it. Now we're entering now the Biden administration is suing Texas over this to try and continue the facilitation of illegal immigration. What happens when a Texas law enforcement officer says, you, sir, I don't know who you are, I don't care who you are breaking the law and you are under arrest? And that guy says, I'm a federal agent, don't you try it.
Well, listen, it's getting to be interesting. I've sort of gone to great lengths, only because I see so many of these guys, FBI agents or retired guys that come up to me and they see what's going on, whether it was to our family or whether it's just in general, and they're like, it's a tarnish on our badge. It's, they saw the Mar-a-Lago FBI raid and they're like, this is insane, this is ridiculous. I'm like, so I've always made sort of the distinction between the bureaucrat at the top that's just, beholden to the politics and frankly all leftists at this point, and the door kickers. But we're getting to the point where it's like, hey guys, if you're just like, well, I'm just doing my job, literally every day someone's rights being violated, the Constitution being violated, the law being violated, when do we stop saying, like, hey man, like, maybe you don't get a pass forever of just doing your job, maybe more people need to speak out. You saw what happened with the FBI whistleblowers calling out, the entrapment or the Gretchen Whitmer, fake kidnapping, and I'm sure all the stuff around January 6th, the insanity there. Oh, we can't show the video because there's too many of our agents in the crowd. It's like, so they were there, but they didn't do anything to stop it. It's almost like they wanted it to happen. So when do we say, like, hey, you no longer get the free pass? Right. I was just doing my job. Because eventually it doesn't fly.
This is what I said last week, that there are people driving buses. Okay, there's a report that I've highlighted several times from several years ago of two military, they're enlisted, I guess, criminally charged for trafficking illegal aliens. It was a U.S. attorney in Texas saying these guys were transporting migrants for cash. Okay, now you've got these, James O'Keefe did this video. He filmed this bus full of illegal immigrants and they're being trafficked. You've got these big airlines trafficking illegal immigrants. I want to see those people driving those buses in handcuffs. Yeah. I want to see a perp walk. We cannot have a country where someone driving this bus, trafficking, engaging in human trafficking, says, my boss told me to do it, it'll be fine. In this video with James, they swerve in and out of traffic trying to get away from him. They go into off ramps and then back on the highway, and then they call the police to try and get rid of them when they're in fact the ones breaking the law. So what I said, and I'll say it again, is that I hope your dad gets elected. I hope Donald Trump wins in 2024, and I hope we don't got to be crazy and arrest literally every single person, but if you are on camera, if there's evidence of you facilitating crimes against this country and working with coyotes for human trafficking purposes, I hope you are criminally charged and arrested. And I will do everything within my power as some dude who complains on the internet to say this to anyone of influence. I'll get
hashtag me too.
I'll say,
I'll be right there with you.
Hey, Don.
And when they come to take us to the gulags, it won't be under our administration, but the second the Democrats take over, because they've shown they're willing to do that, it'll.
Right.
No, but you're right. We see it happening every day. It's across the board. You know, they're throwing out veterans from public housing to put illegals there. They're taking over hotels, paying the owners of the hotels money. But this is tax. It's not like New York's functioning well, right? It's sort of a disaster, and now we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. You saw do you see that article? I think it was NBC or CBS News. Texas spent $100 million shipping illegals out of the state. What a bad use of funds. I go, well, if they sent 100,000 immigrants out of the state of Texas, bust them all over the country, got them out of Texas, that's about $1,000 a person. How much would it have cost Texas to keep them there? So, I mean, the article is so gaslighting. It's like, oh my God, they spent $100 million. I'm like, that could have been $10 billion in the next 2 years just keeping them there.
But,
but they expect you to not believe, beyond the byline or not to see through it, where they've been it's so flagrant these days.
But I'm not gonna defend Texas, Florida, or some of these other states. I know we all laughed when they shipped illegal immigrants like Martha's Vineyard, but when they take illegal immigrants from the border, the Biden administration facilitates this and lets them in, and then Texas pays these companies to ship around the country, that is part of the human trafficking process.
Technically smuggling. It's some of this might be trafficking. Trafficking is when the person doesn't want to be shipped, but if it's of their own volition and they want to be part of it, then they're being smuggled.
Human smuggling.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be, I do not accept that this is some kind of broad, brilliant play for Texas to be like, aha, we'll take those illegal immigrants and send them to other parts of the country.
The problem, while I get what you're saying, at the same time, I think, you see the people in Chicago being like, wait a minute, this is BS. Like, this can't be happening. It's like, well, no. You guys have been yelling about being a sanctuary city and everyone's supposed to be this, but now that you actually deal with it, and when you look at the problem in New York or Chicago, just based on numbers, it's a tiny fraction of what Texas, Arizona, border states actually have to deal with. And all of a sudden now they're waking up. So, you do need sort of the shot across the bow. It's like, hey, if you want to be a sanctuary city, we've been very clear in Texas that they're not going to be. They don't want to be. And they've been dealing with these problems for many decades, frankly. It's much worse now. But, it's really easy to be behind your high fence in Hollywood and talk about how wonderful it is. Those people aren't taking anyone else in. And when they show up in their backyard, all of a sudden it's a problem.
Which is why I can respect it to a certain degree. Yeah. I still think it's bad. However, that being said, that's why I'm saying the Biden administration is facilitating this. And when Texas tries to do something about it, the Biden administration goes after them. The only real course of action they have seems to be this political play of send them to the sanctuary cities and force these people to recognize what they have supported by voting for Joe Biden and these Democrats. And in fact, because of this, it is a large contributing factor to why, I got to tell you, it's wild to see these videos in Chicago where you have people in the black community saying they're voting for Donald Trump. Yeah. I've met some of them. And you have the youth vote. There were 3 polls, I believe, so far showing 18 to 34-year-olds leaning Republican for Donald Trump. And that, to me, is shocking.
It is.
But I think when people realize, hey, you're a young person, you can't afford rent, you can't afford work, you're living paycheck to paycheck, your future's been stolen from you, all of these great crises, the COVID lockdowns, all of these things you've seen, and then they tell you $84,000 a year going to the pocket of that guy, and it's coming from your paycheck, they're going to say, I'm going to vote for the other guy.
Yeah. I mean, we had it pretty good under those times. Again, I see it, and I don't pretend to be. I'm the son of a billionaire from New York, and I took my kids. I took them to Alaska. I just remember this one because it stuck out particularly. I took them to Alaska. We were just doing a father-son fishing trip, and we came back and we were at the Anchorage airport, and I got McDonald's for myself, a 14-year-old, and an 11-year-old, and it was like $39, and I was like, oh my God, dude! If I'm feeling sticker shock, what's happening to the rest of the country? I had a mortgage readjust because I had to maintain something for my ex-wife or whatever. A mortgage readjust that I wasn't paying attention for, and just the interest alone, just from the change in interest rate from a 5-year ARM readjusting was like, oh my God. If you took it proportionally to like the average cost of a home in America, it could be debilitating, relative to median income. Like,
I want to ask you a question before I read the next article. I want to ask you: Donald Trump gets elected again in the end of this year. What's the first thing he does? What's the first thing he will do to alleviate the problem of this massive illegal immigration flooding this country?
Well, you shut down the border to stop the continued spread. You get rid of the incentives to, listen, they're literally incentivized to, and by the way, it's a human crisis that most people can't even imagine. I mean, I'm a big outdoorsman, hunter, and stuff like that. I have friends all over South Texas with ranches and stuff. I mean, they're literally finding dead bodies all over the place. Wow. That desert is not an easy one to cross, and the coyotes aren't exactly friendly people, and they don't exactly do the right thing. I mean, it is a crisis on a humanitarian scale that most people, you'll never hear the numbers, you'll never hear about it. And imagine what's reported in America is going to be very different than what doesn't make it in the 1,000 miles it takes to cross Mexico. So you shut that down, you get rid of the incentives, you do the things like remain in Mexico, you hold them accountable for some of these things, and then you do have to start the deportation effort because these millions, you got to do it. And the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, man. You got to start, you got to go aggressive.
And this is what they're priming us for with this article from scnr.com.